Hi, I'm Brandon Honsalek with Debt Freedom, Georgia. I'm a bankruptcy attorney here in the Metro Atlanta area, and I wanted to take a moment to give some information based on the CARES Act and this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, and cover some of the things that I'm getting a lot of questions about right now with regard to people's personal finances. So I'm going to go over a few different topics and give you maybe some recommendations. Of course, I wouldn't be a very good lawyer if I didn't tell you this is not at all legal advice, and you need to contact your attorney to get your own legal advice. Okay, so mortgages. Let's talk about mortgages and what your new options are now under the CARES Act, what it did for those of you who own your home subject to a mortgage and you're making that monthly mortgage payment each month. Well, it did a couple of things. First, it gives you an option for a forbearance, and it also put a temporary moratorium on foreclosures. Now, first, the most important thing to remember is this is only applying to federally backed mortgages. And what is a federally backed mortgage? Well, that's going to be your FHA loans, your VA loans, your USDA loans, your Fannie Mae, your Freddie Mac loans. Those are all federally backed loans. And there are some resources out there on the internet to figure out if your loan is federally backed or not. You can find out from your lender. You can use those resources. I'm going to put down below in the description some of those links to find that information out. I'm also going to put it on my website where I wrote up a full article related to this video. But if your loan's federally backed, then it qualifies under these provisions of the CARES Act. And you could get this relief with the forbearance if you request it. Now, quick comment about forbearance. What does that mean? That means that you stop paying your loan. So essentially, you owe $1,500 a month. Well, you just stop paying that every month for this 6 months. There's a catch though. You got to pay it back. It doesn't go away. So this is maybe helpful, but isn't really the best option in the world. So that's why I'm going to always say prioritize making your mortgage payment. Figure out some way that you can do it. And if you're saying, how can I possibly do that? Wait until I get to the income side of this discussion, and I'll hopefully give you some hope there. But you're going to have to pay that money back. So when you get to the end of the forbearance period, how are you going to have to pay it back? It's up to your bank. Unfortunately, the CARES Act did not specify what happens at the end of the forbearance. And so it's really impossible to know exactly how your lender is going to handle it. You should ask them. It may be hard to ask them right now, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you should ask your lender, try and find out what are going to be the terms on how you have to repay that 6 months of mortgage payments once you get out of the forbearance period. The worst case scenario would be that you end up having to pay it all as one lump sum, or they say your loan's in default and they try and foreclose or something like that. Now, it seems pretty unlikely that banks would do that, but they potentially could do that. More likely, you're going to see them require you to make those payments as extra payments in addition to your base mortgage payment over a period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Potentially, they could tack it on at the end, but really it's going to be entirely up to the lender as to how they handle that. So that's the only problem with the forbearance. It's like, yes, it's a temporary relief from payments, but you may not be in a great spot once you enter back into repayment on your mortgage. Now, if you do want to get this forbearance, how do you do it? Well, Congress said all you have to do is request it. So how do you request it? I would send a certified letter. You can call, but the mortgage lenders' phones are ringing off the hooks right now, and it's probably going to be tough to get through. You certainly could do that and try that, but I always recommend creating a paper trail. So go ahead and send a certified letter, and this is all you have to say. It literally can be 2 lines. I am experiencing a hardship due to COVID-19. That's the magic language. I'm experiencing a hardship due to COVID-19. I request a 180-day or 6 months, I don't think it matters how you say it, a 6-month forbearance on my loan. So put that in the mail, send it certified, and that will give you that forbearance. Then if you want to extend it for the additional 6 months, because Congress said you get the first 6 months, then you get an additional 6 months, then within that first 6-month period, go ahead and send another letter saying I request an extension for another 6 months. So you can get a forbearance of a total of a year if you request it under the CARES Act. But again, beware. You're going to have to make up those payments that you miss. So really, if there's any way you can, the best option is to keep making those mortgage payments. Prioritize that over all your other debt payments. Let's talk about the other part, the foreclosures. So you're wondering about foreclosures. Have these been stopped? Could they still happen? What if I don't get a forbearance? What if I have a conventional loan? The answer is two answers, the legal answer and the practical answer. Legal answer is you have 60 days from March 18th. So now you're partway into April here, so you only have about 50 days, 40 days left on this moratorium of foreclosures. So again, this is for federally backed mortgages. It only applies to federally backed mortgages. But the CARES Act said that until May 18th, I believe it is, no foreclosures on a federally backed mortgage. So that's the only real legal protection you have. Now, practical reality. Practical reality is here in Georgia, we do what's called non-judicial foreclosures. What that means is the first Tuesday of every month, the banks will go out to the courthouse steps and they will sell off or foreclose in an auction sale. They will sell your house at auction, and it's a public auction. So what's not happening right now? Public gatherings. A public auction is a public gathering. So until the Governor Kemp and the different localities, the municipalities and the counties around here allow us to do public gatherings again, you are probably not going to see, as a practical matter, any foreclosures happen, because it just practically can't happen. You can't gather those people and do a public auction. So I wouldn't expect any foreclosures at all to happen for at least the next couple months. Probably it's going to be somewhere June, July, the earliest that they get back into that. Again, whenever they lift those restrictions on public gatherings. All right, let's talk about rent. Those of you who are renters, you're tenants, you have a landlord, and you're making that monthly rent payment, and now suddenly you've lost a job, you're self-employed, no more income's coming in, and you can't make your rent payment. What do you do? What options do you have? Well, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of legal help right now. The CARES Act didn't really address your situation. There's a very limited exclusion related to the federally backed mortgages where landlords can't evict you right now. But fortunately, you have a practical reality that's helping you. Right now, all the courts in Georgia are sort of half closed, and not a whole lot's happening. As a lawyer, mainly I'm working in the bankruptcy courts, which are still open, and we're still able to get a lot done. But the other courts have slowed to a crawl. I have a few cases that are in the state courts, and things are moving very slowly on all of those. And as a practical matter, the normal way that evictions used to happen is you would have the landlord file for what's called a dispossessory, and then a couple weeks after that, you would have a hearing. And at that hearing, you would have a room full of 50 people that are all getting evicted, or their landlord's trying to evict them. Well, they're not having those hearings right now. So as a practical matter, I don't know how long it's going to be before landlords can meaningfully try and get a dispossessory case through the local court system. So without that happening, a landlord could potentially file for eviction, but it's just kind of not going to go anywhere. And I would expect that once the courts do open those back up and they start having those hearings again, there's going to be a huge backlog and it's going to move very slowly. So again, legal reality is you still got to pay your rent. You miss your rent, you could be evicted. That's still your legal reality. Practical reality, the landlord's going to have a really hard time evicting you right now with this situation. And hopefully a lot of our landlords are having compassion on tenants and not trying to aggressively do that. But again, I'll say the same thing I said for you people who have the mortgage. Prioritize paying your rent. That should be something that you put at the top of your list, because ultimately, if you start getting behind on rent now, even if you are able to stay there because they can't evict you for the next 2 or 3 months, eventually that eviction is going to come if you get behind on your rent. So you want to prioritize that rent payment. Now let's talk a little bit about other issues, and so just sort of more generally about what to do as we're coming out of this situation. This is obviously having massive impact. There's going to be massive ripple effects through our entire economy. We're already seeing them based on this COVID-19 pandemic. And inevitably, you may find yourself in a position where you just can't make all the payments. If you were already in a substantial amount of debt, this is just really making it much worse. So here's the light at the end of the tunnel. Bankruptcy is always an option, and for many people it can be a really good option. Bankruptcy has the potential of completely wiping out all of your debt and getting you that fresh start. So I've had clients before in the past where they've been out of work for 6 months, they've been out of work for a year, or they had a major medical issue that was thousands and thousands of dollars and really set them back. And these people were able to come through that, wipe out all that debt, and get a fresh start. So one thing that you can always keep in mind is that credit cards, medical bills, those things should always be your lowest priority payment because those have the potential of being bankrupt. So I would focus and prioritize making sure you put food on the table, you take care of your basic necessities, you make those mortgage and those rent payments. And if it gets through, you may get a little bit of temporary relief here from the government, but then it takes you a little while to get back into that job, get your business going again. Just don't worry, it will happen. That income will come back. But if you ended up accumulating debt during this period, always consider bankruptcy as an option. Go see a bankruptcy attorney. I offer free consultations. It doesn't cost you anything to talk to me. There's really no reason not to talk to me and at least get your options. Even if bankruptcy is maybe not a good option, I'll let you know that and I'll give you your other options. But I haven't ever had somebody come to my office to where I couldn't give them options for hope for their future. So I hope that this will be something that encourages you and lets you know that there's always hope. There's always an opportunity for your life. There's always a plan for your life. And if you need any help, I'm here. So feel free to give us a call over at Debt Freedom Georgia.